Motivation fades because it is not built on a stable system. That doesn't mean motivation is useless. It means it was never designed to last. Many people assume that when motivation disappears, something went wrong, that they lost discipline, that they weren't serious enough. But fading motivation is not a personal failure. It is a predictable outcome of how motivation works. We are taught to rely on motivation as a driver of change. When motivation is high, action feels lighter, decisions feel easier, resistance feels low. This creates the impression that motivation is the engine behind behavior, and in the beginning that impression seems accurate. But motivation is not an engine. It is a temporary condition, and like most temporary conditions, it changes. Most people treat motivation as if it were a resource, something you can generate, store, and use repeatedly. But motivation doesn't function like a resource. It functions more like a reaction. It appears in response to novelty, urgency, emotional stimulation, or anticipation of reward, a new plan, a new goal, a new version of yourself. These signals trigger engagement, but the brain adapts quickly. Once the signal becomes familiar, the reaction weakens. That weakening is not a defect. It is the system doing exactly what it is designed to do. This is where the problem usually appears. At first, behavior feels self-propelled. Then, effort increases. Consistency requires more conscious control. Small actions start to feel heavier. At this stage, many people interpret the discomfort as a personal issue. They assume they are becoming lazy, or distracted, or undisciplined. But what is happening is structural, not personal. The behavior was built on something unstable. Motivation operates at the surface level of behavior. It influences attention and energy temporarily, but it does not create long-term regulation. The brain does not maintain effort through excitement. It maintains effort through predictability and reduced cognitive load. When behavior depends on motivation, each action requires a fresh internal push. That constant pushing increases friction. Over time, friction creates avoidance, not because the goal stopped mattering, but because motivation-based system became inefficient. This is where design systems matter. A system does not rely on emotional intensity. It does not depend on how motivated someone feels in the moment. A system reduces the number of decisions required to act. It creates consistency through structure, not effort. This is why people with stable habits often appear disciplined. What you are seeing is not constant motivation. You are seeing a process that removes the need for motivation. The behavior continues because the system makes stopping more inconvenient than continuing. Consider someone who exercises only when motivated. Each session requires a decision, a mental push, an internal negotiation. Compare that to someone with a fixed routine, same time, same place, same structure. The second person is not more motivated. They are operating inside a system that minimizes resistance. Over time, the difference compounds, not because of willpower, but because of structure. When people repeatedly rely on motivation, they create cycles. Strong start, gradual resistance, drop-off, self-blame. Each cycle reinforces the belief that something is wrong with them. In reality, the problem was the foundation. Motivation was asked to do a job it was never meant to do. When motivation fades, it is not a signal to try harder. It is information. It tells you that the behavior was built on something temporary. Applying more pressure at that point usually increases resistance. Sustainable change does not come from extending motivation. It comes from building structures that do not require motivation to function. If this feels familiar, it's because most people were never taught how behavior actually stabilizes. In future videos, we'll explore what systems look like psychologically and how change becomes quieter, more consistent, and less dependent on willpower. If these explanations are useful, you can explore more on this channel.